it was an easy, quick way to do it. So Ericsson provided this method instead. I just missed my bench though when I was leaning on my elbow. My year towards the end of this year, I suppose, is going to get a little bit busier, and I don't think I'm going to be able to make a video every couple of weeks. And so I thought it'd be good to get started with sort of a more casual, a more informal, sort of weekly kind of show about just messing about with code and one of my projects. You don't want to see my anime folder? Well, it's pretty empty. Yeah. There's an ongoing joke here. I'll be quite honest with you guys, I really don't like anime. So, and that's immediately, as I can see the number of viewers immediately drop off a cliff and everybody unfollows. It's perfect. I find it easiest to motivate myself if I write code for one of my ideas. Yeah, and that's another thing. That's a really good point, actually. Write code for stuff that you actually care about. It always puzzles me, and one of the reasons I set up the channel is you see people giving programming lessons and demonstrations and saying, right now what we're going to do is print the Fibonacci sequence in the command prompt. I said, who wants to print the flipping Fibonacci sequence? Do something fun, right? You've got to make it fun. Coding's always fun. When I was learning to code, I was 10 years old. I wasn't printing out the Fibonacci sequence. I was getting my name spazzed all over the screen in different colours and lots of noises coming out the thing. That's what you want, not sort of these really dull exercises about data structures and algorithms. You could infer via the language what it was you were trying to create, but that's not allowed now. It's unsafe, so we have to do everything like we used to do it 20 years ago. Let's take a look. Now, will it fail? Will it work? Are things going to be orbiting each other? Ooh, Now, that's because they're orbiting at the same speed, is that right? The orbit of the moon seems to be orbiting the sun instead. I'm just going to take out the elapsed time there so we can see if it's just static or not. What's going on there? That's quite interesting. That doesn't draw anything. Debug the location. Your maths has broken my thing, Ericsson. That's not very good. And that was, I changed the formula. So you remember Ericsson came along and broke all of our mathematics. Thank you, Ericsson. So at the moment we're still sort of also drawing circles and things. It's not very exciting visually, and for those, if this is your first CodeZone visit, then welcome. The whole point of this is it is unscripted. There is no particular plan. We get very little done. Usually there's a lot of distraction going on in the chat, and I make lots of bugs live on stream. What's draw explicit decal for? Right, so draw explicit decal is a special command that allows you to draw explicit decals. What's the advantage of the smart pointers? Well, it makes me look like I know what I'm doing with Modern C, right? Just make everything shared. So Ericsson is here, everybody. You are using the real gravity constant when all the other values are fake. Exactly, that's what we're just describing, right? So it becomes, what's the point in using the real gravity constant? And I think you're quite right. We may as well just set that to 1 or something like that. Just set it to 1. Tonight we're going to be looking at drawing the planets. That's what the title says, at least, and we're going to have a go. So it draws the whole circle all the time. So even when we're zoomed into these really close distances, it's drawing this enormous circle, which is billions of pixels in circumference. And you know what? I'm just too tired today to work out the arc mathematics clipping with the rectangles. So what we're going to do is not draw the circles. We're going to draw decals instead that represent the planets. What have we got here? We've got quite a few people following. So, Monsieur Badia, thank you very much. Lexus, Pure of Pure, KG Will 555, Sutter Baruso, honey, mice, and Doskia. People think I'm nuts. So this one adds a sort of an atmosphere. So we can see around here, it's sort of a glowy kind of atmosphere. And I'm also mixing that and combining that with a shadowy sort of texture. Sorry if I keep rubbing my nose. A little bit of cold. I was out went for a quick run before and it was a disaster. It was a bit too cold. Well, there you go, Ericsson. See, sorry. Yeah, I'm not looking at the chats enough. But yes, just take the inverse tangent. It's exactly what we've just done. The inverse tangent of the planet's position. And so I think that looks rather nice. Right, so I think it's time to time to cough everywhere. Sorry about that. It's going to keep happening. And we'll have a look at structuring our solar system a bit better, because right now we're creating everything as a standalone planet and we're giving it variable names, and it's just not very convenient to have a mass of things to look at. Right, back to the main game. So, okay, we're kind of happy that's all up and running. We now need to fix our selected planet tool again, because right now it doesn't work. That's what we say up north. Hidden asbestos. Now, I don't know. You somebody I know, because if anybody knows me, they'll know I've had an asbestos problem recently. But it's nice that we're sort of smoothly panning around the universe. We've just got no control over what we're smoothly panning around. And it does always look like we're sort of offset by the same amount. Oh, maybe I did. Ah, do you know what it is? Oh, dear me, I've been such a fool. I know what it is. It's because we're thrown in elapsed time here, which is bringing this number down to a very small number, and that's why now it's large. It's working better. Oh, dear me. Oh well. Will the sun rotate? Yes, I think it will, but our reliable oracle of space formulae, Ericsson, has let us down in this regard. He's not provided us with a formula that determines how fast a planet rotates. Basically, he said it's entirely random and arbitrary and that there is no science behind it, which makes you think. Ooh, got nothing. Nothing. We've got a bug. Oh, no, we've not got a bug. We've got a very, very small sun. The sun is smaller than our Earth. Why is that? That's fascinating. So let's change that radius. Let's make that 500, but we'll put our planet at 1,000 further out. Yes. Now, a little trick, and you might not pick this up on the Discord server. No, sorry, on the Discord server, on the Twitch stream. Right now, you can probably see that they're all pixelated. And this is one of those things that I don't discuss very much because I like the pixel aesthetic, but you don't have to have them. So a little pro tip here, if you're not actually happy with the pixel aesthetic. So now when we zoom in, you can see it's all blended and sampled for us. And that's actually cost us nothing to do. Fingers crossed that all of these things still work. I need to test the PGE more when I make changes to it. There we go. So you see now the sun actually looks a lot brighter than it did before, and that's because the textures have been accumulated rather than blended as it was previously. And then I'm also going to draw it once like that, the other way. So it's probably going to be spinning far too fast, but let's have a look. So now we've got sort of a constructive interference happening across the surface of our sun. And I'm drawing it twice, they're all adding up to each other, and it gives us this sort of nice, sort of dynamic sunspot type feel to things. I think it's quite nice, right? See, doesn't that makes a massive difference? So just knowing these sort of very simple tricks, you can actually produce some very nice effects. The thing is, it's far too fast. So I'm going to slow that down considerably. And here, and maybe I've slowed that down far too much. Have I slowed that down far too much? Let's go to somewhere where you might actually see some change. I think I've slowed that down so much that we can't even perceive it's moving. So let's dial that back a tad. It's also, the sun is very nice and bright. The only thing I don't like are these sort of concentric circles that we're seeing. Make the clouds 1% larger than the sun. So is that to sort of give it a bit of a blurry edge? Okay, no, I think that's a good idea. Let's try that. So where we're setting our scale is here. Alright, so they're now both set to be a little bit larger than the disk underneath it. Now, I don't think we're going to see much of the disk anyway, but hey, wanted the chat to have sort of like a say in what's going on here, but I don't think it's going to be as obvious as you might like. So yeah, you see, it's a bit Actually, do you know what? It's not bad at all. It's pretty good. Perhaps if we chose the sky, if we faded the sky textures out towards the edges, that would help too. Which is maybe something we can do in the next episode. Yes, well, it's another Tuesday. Hasn't it gone quick? We've decided on the Discord that we're not calling these Tuesdays anymore. These are now CodeZone days. That's how we pronounce that day of the week. So Tuesday is so last week. Now it's CodeZone day. Yeah, you see, that's no, it's not radial blur though. I wanted it. What is the? I wanted. Is it zoom blur or something like that they call it? New adjustment layer. Sorry, filters. Blur. Zoom blur. Right, okay. Ooh, yes. This is the fun side of game dev, right? This is the bit that I actually like, sort of tweaking this sort of thing. Yeah, that looks okay. It's still a bit harsh, right? Maybe there's not enough interference going on around the edges, because it blurred it, but it didn't necessarily sort of fade it out. And I'm going to call this one MGFX Cosmic Background Loveliness. There we go. So now, yeah, there we go. You won't be able to see this on the Discord stream, but it's now filtered. Right? You can't make out the individual pixels. You make out some interesting filtering algorithms that it's applied, which is probably interesting in its own right. But it's made a nice sort of banded, gradiented sort of thing towards the center of our system. And it's really nice. I think that's really bright, because it actually does brighten up my face. Right? So if I'm on the camera, when I'm near my sun, and when I'm not, and when I am, see, I can actually feel the warmth. It's good. But I do think the lighting is starting to look okay. Right, okay. So we've been donated a sprite by Vivisector on the Discord, or Mycon here on Twitch. Right, that looks a bit better. So there is our craft. Right, relative oomph, to the sun. Yes, I like that. That's about right. So if I just start accelerating a little bit and press F1, there we go. So the ship's always now in the middle of the screen. It's a bit confusing that it's 90 degrees out. But it doesn't matter what my zoom level is now. Let's accelerate towards the planet. Something strange going on with backward movement here. Ah, do you know what the thing is? The problem is the physics are rubbish. I should be able to turn the ship, but it should keep going in the same direction. So right now, really, what we've got is this car that drives around in space. rather than a spacecraft, and that's what was confusing me. I was thinking, oh, why is this? Why is it getting so fast and that sort of thing? So yeah, okay, we've built a sort of space car, and we hacked together some sort of craft control, and it was rubbish. It really was. It was barely flyable, and we might come back to that later today. One of the odd things is the craft just keeps accelerating. We can see here it goes faster and faster and faster. Eventually, too fast that you can't do anything sensible. You literally can't slow down. You can't steer it. It's just all wrong. So we'll come back to that. It was a terrible implementation. We need to rethink it. Then you're tempted to think, well, let's add millions of stars. So okay, we add millions and millions of stars, but then I've got to draw them all or somehow spatially sort them out, and that seems like effort too. So I'm going to steal some code that I created from the procedurally generated universe video, where I'm going to take the coordinate of the universe and use that to seed a pseudo-random number generator, and that will tell me if a star exists in that location. At least that's the plan. Right, so where am I up to? Tab, zoom in. So now, hopefully, yes, that's good. Now, what we can see is that the stars per sector are sort of randomly generated, but they're consistent. Because what this really means is that these stars are consistent, and we've not had to store them anywhere, right? We've just sort of generated them as and when we've needed them, depending on our sort of where we are in space. So that's a nice cheap way of generating some stars. And we're only generating the stars we can see as well. So if there were any particular patterns in the sky, those patterns actually remain there. Right? We don't need to store it anywhere. So people could go back to parts of the galaxy that they're familiar with, and they'll recognize the constellations. We could vary this up a little bit by also choosing things such as different star sizes and different colors. So anyway, I think what I've hit upon here is that yes, it looks like procedurally generating stars is the way forward to generate sort of this nice, interesting background pattern for us. I've lost my planet. I had some keys to go quickly to planets. There we go. Now, it may be the case that as they're zooming in, new stars appear, but if they go from a zoomed out perspective and zoom in, at least then they'll be able to accurately say, well, hang on, yes, there's the thing I'm zooming in on. So there's this little cluster over here. That little cluster remains. Right, so what do we got this week then? Well, firstly, I have a very British thing which I'm supping on, because I've still got my cough. It's not gone away. I have what's called a hot Vimto, which is absolutely delicious. It's Vimto cordial, but with boiling water added. That's very, very nice. Almost as good as tea. First things first, I thought what I would do is sort of zoom out and just take a moment to try and get the opinion of the audience, what we think of, well, potentially the new look. And it's changed a little bit. There's some very subtle parallax effecting going on. But the idea is I've added sort of this nebulous kind of background, which is using a very subtle parallax scrolling. So if I zoom all the way out, we can sort of begin to see the entire solar system there. And I'm using sort of an additive blend to give it this ethereal nature. And if I zoom right back in at sort of the gameplay scale that we're thinking, you may have noticed I've also smoothed the zoom out a little bit too. Zoom right back in at this game scale. Well, it's now very subtle, the effect of parallax scrolling. In fact, probably barely even perceivable. And that's kind of what I want, because I think that gives us the real impression of space. Also, because we've got additive blending all over the place, you get these sort of really cool glows and things. I like that. I think I'm going to keep that in. Galaxy on, hello, Speedy has joined us. Always good when Speedy shows up. I like Speedy showing up in the chats. Everybody say hi to Speedy, please. We've got, I can't pronounce this one. Yappy, 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 yapper. Oh, the spa thing. Well, it's a space thing. Magetsub is here. It's always exciting. And Dandestein, yes, and the stars are static. Well done, Dandestein, observant as ever. You have noticed a fundamental change in philosophy that I adopted during the week. And I'll recompile the application, and hopefully it'll reveal a problem that I was facing. I was thinking, oh dear, this problem is absolutely going to kill this project, because I was struggling and it didn't occur to me what was going on. So there will be an update to Transform View pretty soon. And this is the problem. Now, can you see that on the Twitch stream? The Earth vibrates. Is one of the things I always do when I'm casting to screen coordinates. The screen, there is no sort of sub-pixel resolution. They have to be integer values. So I always call the floor function. You want to do that in case the values are negative. You always want them to go down. So that's fine, but it always means that you actually don't round properly. So I recommend that if you take the floor of whatever your value is, but plus 0.5, you actually get an accurate rounding. In that case, there is a round function too, but for me this is sort of visual, and I understand what's going on there. The most spacious of space. Is that an Ibanez behind you? Yes, you're asking the proper questions. That's the correct questions to ask. It's an Ibanez 570B. They're not that common. And no, I'm not going to play it. But it's actually a really nice guitar because it's super thin. It's really lightweight, this guitar, and it sounds amazing. Right, so what I'm doing now is trying to change the scale of our spaceship. So the spaceship is here. And if I press X, yes, there we go. Spaceship gets big, spaceship gets small, spaceship gets big, spaceship gets small. So that's working quite nicely. So I could have sort of massive scale spaceship, or the sun could just be further away from the spaceship. So there's two ways of interpreting this. I think the playing height is good. So yeah, the ship should probably be just that small thing in the screen, because you're going in space battles and things, you're going to want to be able to see what's going on around you. But also in space battles, you might want to do this. And this is an option to us too. The player can choose to zoom out now. Anyway, everybody, stay safe and take care, and I'll see you next time.